Welcome aboard. Rocky story. Okay, next item is the communications and the election of officers. So I guess we want to solicit nominations for chairman and vice chairman. Do we have any nominations?
I would like to nominate Silvio Catuli for chairman.
Any other nominations? Anyone unopposed? Okay. I guess, do we have to take a vote if it's, do we have to take a vote? Yeah, okay. All those in favor of,
Aye.
opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, vice chairman.
I would like to nominate Callie Jean Wise as vice chair.
I nominate Joe.
Okay, so now we have a real bona fide election coming up.
Question, does that mean she did not accept the nominations?
I'm just saying Joe would be a great choice.
But you have a much better track record in the position.
Gosh.
That's true. All right, we've got two nominations. All those in favor of Callie Jean Wise as vice chairman, raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I thought we were going to do Joe next.
Well, we are.
Okay.
All those in favor of Joe Gazinski as vice chair, raise your hand. I think Callie Jean Wise has it. Thank you. Sorry, Joe.
Joe won.
Heartbroken.
Okay. I'm glad we can do all that friendly terms. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of meeting minutes for December 3, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve unless there's some comment on?
I make a motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, we have no old business, but all new businesses. So, Suzanne, you can take it away?
Sure. Item 7A is zoning ordinance text amendment ZTX-24-2. This is an amendment addressing structures projecting into required yards. We discussed this at the morning workshop, and the ordinance revisions are provided in full in your staff report. This amendment addresses two elements of the section 23105. The first is that it would allow accessible ramps, home elevators, and residential lifts not more than 50% of the required depth of the front or rear yard, provided other applicable building codes are complied with. And this is to address residents who live in the city now who have lived in their home that was built to the front setback, and then their mobility decreases and they need some kind of way to get into their house. This would allow them to have a ramp or a lift project not more than 50% into the yard. So if the front setback is 20 feet, the ramp could go 10 feet into their front or rear yard, not the side yards. And then the second element is in 1 and 2 family dwellings for the HVAC units, swimming pool equipment, and electric generators. The way the ordinance was originally written, a 5-foot separation between all of those elements. That was not the intent. So this clarifies the intent, and so it says no minimum separation is required between such equipment on the same property. However, there must be at least a 5-foot separation between these encroachments and any adjacent property encroachments, ensuring a clear path to maneuver around equipment on different properties. So this is just to provide clarification and prevent someone's house, the entire side yard, to be taken up with electrical equipment.
Okay. Do we have any discussion by the commission members? I think it's a good idea. No comments. Do we have any comments from the public? No? All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the zoning ordinance text amendment Z-24-2 as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion on the record about this change? Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it.
Item 7B is zoning ordinance text amendment Z-24-3. This addresses perimeter landscape requirements where certain elements of our perimeter landscape ordinance were inadvertently deleted around 2009. One of those elements was that a 10-foot landscape depth was required along certain roads. Other roads require a 5-foot depth perimeter landscape buffer along the front. Where those, mainly commercial properties, this doesn't affect single-family residential. So this adds back in the text requiring the roads, but adds a couple more main kind of highways in our area. So we've added where property abuts Highway 17, Sea Mountain Highway, Main Street, Robert Edge Parkway, Champions Boulevard, and Water Tower Road. The minimum perimeter landscape area shall be 10 feet. And then the second element is that required plantings in the perimeter landscape area may be moved outside the minimum perimeter area when a plan is submitted showing more than the minimum is being provided for perimeter landscape area. So that element was also inadvertently deleted. Now, just to note, these have been enforced continuously since their deletion, but this is to make everything square across the board.
I just thought about this. Do we need to add in 17th South and 37th Ave South if we're looking at making those Main Street type districts?
I think the overlay district has different requirements for landscaping on Main Street. That doesn't require that on those zero lot areas, like at the area we're talking about, the main heart of the city, part of Main Street. And I think that if we made the 10-foot landscape buffer on 37th and 17th, it was kind of do the opposite of what we want to do, like activate the streetscape there and make it an energetic environment where people and pedestrians and the building is right up to the setback. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussions by commission? Do you have any comments from the public? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Okay, Ed. We have a second?
Second.
Any final comments on the record? Any final comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any final comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any final comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any final comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any final comments? Okay, all those in
Item
favor say
7C
aye.
is zoning ordinance text amendment ZTX-24-4. This is an amendment addressing parking flexibility in the Piaco Priority Investment Activity Center overlay, the commercial centers of the 4 historic beach communities.
commercial centers. and four-story
currently-
beach communities. Commercial centers.
The Piaco overlay allows developers in Main Street Activity Center to pay a fee in lieu of providing some or all required parking, encouraging investment and redevelopment. The other activity centers that Callie referred to earlier, 37th South, 17th South, and Sea Mountain Highway, do not have this option for the fee in lieu. So this revision would create that option for these other focus areas identified by our comprehensive plan. Just to show the actual text that we're revising, we're removing Main Street Activity Center, and so it would refer to all of the activity centers as a means of further encouraging investment and reinvestment, proposed new uses for existing structures or new construction other than multifamily residential motels and hotels located entirely within these activity centers may, as an alternative to providing all or some portion of the required number of parking stalls, pay into a parking development fund on a per space fee schedule established by city council. Currently, that fee schedule established is $25,000 a parking space in Main Street. So it would now be $20 for all four of them.
Is there a future provision that we need to add for inflation?
I think city council kind of negotiates that. It hasn't been utilized that often. But I can certainly make that in my issue paper to city council, let them know to consider inflation, but.
I have a question about the funds that are collected for these parking spaces. They go into some kind of fund or?
I think the city spent quite a lot on acquiring parking. I can find out exactly where those funds are going. I think it's only been utilized once
Yeah.
for a couple of spaces.
Well, I guess my follow-on question to that is, at what point, is there some trigger point where the funds accumulate to a certain point and then they build a parking garage or buy a parking lot or something? Any idea?
I do not know. I know that there, as far as I'm aware, there's been 2 spaces. We have bought a lot of land for parking, so I don't know if there's any relationships established, but I will definitely find out what fund that goes into. And
As far as I know, there are not any triggers that are required for when the funds will be expended for parking facilities, either parking lots or parking garages. I'll know, and the funds available in that.
it would be 50,000 that was in there.
There we go. Facilities that we've recently acquired cost a great deal more than that. But at the end of the day, without going on too much, there are no triggers that require expenditure of those funds for the.
Wouldn't they be maybe showing up on the capital improvements list that we see every year?
That's a finance question. We certainly can find out the answer to that. I would imagine that they are. Get you a definite answer on that.
And Jim just informed me that those funds go into the same fund that the enhancement fees from your DAs, the beach parking fee, it's like $1,100 a unit, I think, in most of the PDDs that we've recently seen. It goes into the same account.
So it's kind of like a lockbox account. Nothing else is going to be drawing those funds down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We have any other questions or comments? Anything from the public? Yep. All right. All those in favor? Sorry, for a motion?
I move that the Plan Commission recommend approval of the zoning ordinance text amendment Z2 4-4 as submitted.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion for the record? Okay, call for vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Item 7D is preliminary subdivision plat SUB-24-47. This is a major preliminary plat creating 140 residential lots and private rights-of-way off Marshfield Road in Phase 2 of the Lorette Tract, which is also known as Marshfield. Planning Commission recommended the annexation and zoning of this in July of '22. City Council approved that in January of '23, and the preliminary plat for Phase 1 was approved by Planning Commission January 9th of 2024. The total area of the subdivision is 23.15 acres. It's one lot of record currently zoned R2A. It's unused and vacant at this time. There was a block length waiver request March 21st of 2023 that was approved by Planning Commission. And this plat is substantially consistent with the approved master plan that accompanied that block length waiver. So all of the elements match. Smallest lot, 3,842 square feet. Largest lot is 20,200 square feet. These are all intended for townhomes. Density is 6.05 dwelling units per acre. All the setbacks conform, and it creates the 50-foot wide private rights-of-way known as Harrington Street and Fairfax Drive. Again, all these roadways are designed to city standards, requiring sidewalks and street trees in accordance with the land development regulations and the previously approved master plan. And the construction documents have been approved and reviewed and approved by city staff. So staff has no comment on any issues. This meets our development standards.
Any questions by the commission?
Bring a rendering of the proposed structures? I did. Thank you.
We went old school with paper copies.
Here, why don't you, yeah, can you put one here?
Ah, okay. Oh, great. We could share if necessary.
It's on. I just switched. There you go.
Thanks, sir.
These are side-loaded on the middle parts.
Thank you very much.
I have a question about the streets. You say that they are private streets. Is the community going to be gated? No, sir.
There's not a provision for a gate. It's the road doesn't meet our road manual for gates. It has to have like a safety access loop, and it has to be.
Right, yeah, I was wondering about that. Okay.
So where is the load or the front door? Where is that on these? Is it on the back side?
They're actually, you can't really see them from the road. The window up on the, yes, right there is one. Left side there, Suzanne, it's just turn 90 degrees and go in.
So you're not going to be able to see any front doors.
Partially see the front door. Actually, from that angle, that's
As you were coming down the street.
right, you can see it from that.
And just to triple check, I know you said it does have sidewalks.
Sidewalks
Okay.
and street trees according to our land regs. And just as a note, this, we don't really have any purview over the elevations.
Are there any other townhomes built like this currently in the Grand Dunes?
Not in Grand Dunes, not in, Delaware or Louisiana. 501.
Any further questions? Comments? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Which motion? The first one?
And a motion to approve.
To approve.
Okay, okay.
Approve.
Do you have any further comments for the record before we take a vote? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Good job.
Item 7E is preliminary plat SUB 4-66. This is a subdivision creating 21 residential lots and private rights-of-way off Brindley Road in Phase 4 of the Grand Dunes North at the Parkway Group. As we discussed in this morning's workshop, this major amendment to the Parkway Group was approved second reading March 15th of 2021 by City Council. And that approved all the elevations and everything associated with this neighborhood. The total area of the subdivision is 19.9 acres. It's all one pen currently. This major preliminary plat creates 21 residential lots to be used for townhomes, and you will see these back again to be further subdivided as major plats. There are 3 common area lots and private rights-of-way. All setbacks conform to the standards of the PDD. The plat continues Brindley Road and creates Barony Drive. These are both 50-foot wide private rights-of-way. All new roadways are designed to city standards, requiring sidewalks and street trees according to the land regs and the PDD documents. And the construction drawings outlining the streets and infrastructure are substantially consistent and have been approved by staff. There's no issues with our development standards.
Have any questions or comments by the commissioners?
How do you decide whether or not you put 5 units or 4 units or 6 units per lot?
I imagine it would be the width of the lots.
Yeah, spatial availability.
So according to this, we don't know how many would be. There might be 5 here and 4 here and 6 here and.
Right, right now you're approving 21 residential lots for a townhome building each. You will see them back as final plats for each one of those buildings that further subdivides the townhomes. It's a different way to handle the townhome project. In the previous plat, they've lotted all their townhomes. They will come back with boundary adjustment plats once the townhomes are built and adjust the common wall locations. But that's a staff approval, so you only see that one time. This one you'll see another 21 times.
Any more comments or questions by commissioners? Any comments from the public? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move that the Plan Commission approve the major preliminary plat of subdivision 24-66 prepared for Phase 4 of Grand Dunes North as submitted.
Second.
Okay. Guy? Any further discussion on the record before we vote? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Item 7F is preliminary subdivision plat SUB-24-68. This creates 72 single-family residential lots in Phase 5 of Grand Dunes North at the Parkway Group. This is it's just adjacent to the previous plat. Total area of the subdivision is 14.81 acres. Again, this creates 72 residential lots, all single-family. You will see this again as a final plat, but it won't come back a million times. Smallest lot is 5160 square feet. The largest lot is 6590. The density is 4.86 dwelling units per acre. The setbacks conform to the standards of the PDD and are the sidewalks and street trees according to the land regs and the PDD. They're all included. The developer's creating the following 50-foot wide private rights-of-way: Linus Lane, Brawley Drive, Rhea Way, and Ambrose Avenue. And staff has reviewed and approved the construction drawings associated with this.
Any comments by our commissioner? Any comments from the public? Ed? Ed? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Thought you were looking for some answer to a question or something. Okay. Any, I guess I'd like to. Motion? Thank you.
I move the planning commission approve the major preliminary plat of subdivision 24-68 prepared for Phase 5 of Grand Dunes North as submitted.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the record before we vote? No comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Item 7G is final subdivision plat S24-83. This is a major final bonded plat of subdivision creating 78 residential lots and public rights-of-way in Phase 2 of Sea Chase Point. The preliminary plat for this was approved by y'all December 6, 2022. Total area is 24.4 acres. It's currently one lot of record. There's nothing vertical, but the infrastructure is currently under construction here. This area is zoned R1B. Smallest lot is 6219 square feet. The largest lot is 7042 square feet. All setbacks conform to the R1B district. This continues Sea Chase Way and creates Bayview Court, Springwatch Drive, Beachview Lane, Beachway Lane, and Sundancer Lane. All designed to city requiring sidewalks and street trees, and it's substantially consistent with the previously approved preliminary plat. The applicant will provide a letter of credit in the amount of $920,490 to the city upon approval, to be exercised by the city to complete any outstanding improvements. But staff has no issue with the proposed major final plat of subdivision. It meets all our standards.
Any questions or comments? from the public? Okay, call for a motion.
I move that the planning commission approve the major bonded final plat of subdivision 24-83 prepared for phase 2 of Sea Chase Point as submitted.
Second.
Last chance for comments before we vote. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, last plat, 7H. This is final subdivision plat, S 24-85. This creates 45 residential lots, common area, and private rights-of-way in Southwind Cove. Off 37 acres. The infrastructure is currently under construction and it's zoned R2A. The smallest lot is 3198 square feet. The largest lot is 7 square feet, the density being 5.4 dwelling units per acre. The setbacks conform to the standards of the R2A district, utilizing the zero lot line overlay for single-family homes. It creates Southwind Way and Cove Wind Circle. These are both 25-foot wide private rights-of-way. And it creates a secondary fire access connection to Westport Drive in accordance with our land reg access requirements. Construction drawings were reviewed and approved, and the final plat is substantially consistent with the previously approved preliminary plat. The owner is providing a letter of credit for 1.45 million to the city on plat approval, to be exercised if they do not complete all the required improvements. And staff has no comments. There are no issues with our development standards.
Any questions by the commissioners, comments?
I would have liked to have seen some sort of photo or drawing or rendering of what type of structures are going to go on proposed for this property.
It is straight zoning.
I understand that, but I mean, I was against this before and I'm still against it. Between the lift station, the main sewer line that runs through the property, the fact that these houses are going to back up to the dumpsters of the seafood restaurant and the Chinese buffet. Just because you can do something with a piece of land doesn't mean you should. That's the only comment I have to make. I don't like this at all.
And this has, I know there's not a whole lot we can do, it's kind of a rubber stamp at this point, but this has the buffer that's required, the subdivision buffer,
Yes.
and does it have the complete streets?
Yes.
I can't see it on there, but I mean, that's.
Well, the final plat doesn't, you can see the right-of-way. The 25-foot private right-of-way mirrors our 50-foot right-of-way. It's just the property line on the edge of curb, and then they have to have a 12.5-foot easement for the sidewalks, the street trees that are required in the public right-of-way. So in case in the future, this development wants to change to public streets, this private street matches the public street cross-section. It's virtually the same. The only benefit they get from using the private right-of-way is they can use that additional lot area in the calculations. The setback still has to be taken off of the easement, the 12.5-foot easement. So it doesn't give them a lot of benefit. But there is some. It still matches the 50-foot right-of-way virtually.
And there will be a buffer between the commercial versus the subdivision.
it meets the requirements that, I'm not aware of a required buffer. There is a setback required for the individual site, the entire site.
Does that say 41 feet? Or am I,
Sorry. There's a 10-foot exterior project setback.
What can go in that setback? Just vegetation? I mean, I know you can't build anything in it, but what,
No structures can go in that setback.
all it
Yeah.
is just a setback, not a buffer.
It's a site setback. It's for the entire site.
Line, the back wall of your house can sit on that 10-foot line.
I don't know that that's accurate.
Is that not what that is, a setback? I'm looking at
It's a
right here?
setback, but it's a site setback for the entire development. It's not, I would have to look at what, we ask that they do not put setbacks on final plats for individual lots because setbacks change as zoning districts change. This is straight zoning. It meets the requirements of that district.
So what is the rear setback in utilizing this? This is a little bit different than just straight zoning. It is straight zoning, but it's that.
Right, but they have that 25% common open space requirement. There's a lot more required open space for this development, and the site setbacks would not be, if this was just R2A, it would not have those site setbacks off of, Westport Drive has a 25-foot project setback. Can pull up R2A. Minimum yards are 25 front, 5-foot side, and 20-foot rear for single-family detached.
So does the rear setback for the house start after that 10-foot setback, or that 10-foot setback is included within the 20-foot rear?
A rear, so the setbacks, the project site area setbacks changes the individual dwelling setbacks to 10 feet, side yard setback 5. Each individual dwelling may be permitted to have 1 0 lot line, provided that the yard setback eliminated thereby be used to increase the opposite yard setback, and provided that a minimum setback separation of 10 feet is maintained.
so they could put it on the property line and then just increase their front yard? Is that what that's
No,
saying?
I think the side, not the front or the rear.
Okay.
It's not used to change the front or rear setbacks, it's used to change the side setbacks.
You emailed me a part of the code this morning.
The 0 lot line, single-family detached development.
Okay. That's it.
It's permitted in R2, R2A, and R4, and NC.
And that's why they're able to have the smaller lots. 3,000 square foot minimum instead of the 5,000.
Have a minimum 25% open space. That's not a requirement of a single-family development in R2A. It's a requirement of this.
So that's the trade-off, the open space. Is there an open space requirement at all with R2 or none?
Unless it's an in-common development, but for platted lots, there's no open space requirement. But when you start using the 0 lot line overlay, then you have these elements.
question get answered, Ed?
I mean, I understand what they're doing, yes.
Any other questions, comments? Any input from the public? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the major bonded final subdivision plat SUB 2485 as prepared and submitted.
Second.
Any final comments before we vote? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it, 5-2. We have a public comment period. Anyone from the public like to speak to the planning commission?
I have a quick question. So in that procedure, so what if that would have failed as the final plat with them already doing infrastructure and everything?
It can't really fail. They meet our requirements. I appreciate the no votes, but it meets our requirements.
Recommending body.
It's just kind of a having, for real?
Uh-oh.
Then, the planning commission, when it's presented with, on the plat for final approval, it's not that you're rubber stamping the plat, but you're recognizing, and this is the body that recognizes and has complied with the city's land development regulations. So it's, if they've complied with those land development regulations, the planning commission would recognize that and approve the final plat. If staff indicated they had not complied with the land development regulations, then that would be a position for the board not to approve of the plat. But if they've met the land development regulations, that will be a reason for the planning commission. Again, I hate to use the term rubber stamp because that's not what you're doing, but you're recognizing as the board of the city that this applicant has met the city's land development regulations and standards.
It's not likely that we would ever see something that we would not recommend.
Again, if the applicant has complied with the land development regulations, that would be the trigger or the reason for the approval of the plat.
That's
And
why
Jim, I don't know if you have any, or staff has any.
you only
additional
have
comments?
one alternative motion for final plats. That is to approve the final plat. There is no offer of deny.
Just one other comment, if you denied it and someone challenged the denial of that, a court may find that your denial was arbitrary and capricious or without a basis.
Right. So it's not likely that we would ever see something that would urge us to deny it because it has gone through a process before it ever got to us.
When it gets to that point, the applicant most likely has complied with all of the city's land development regulations, and staff is reporting that and is presented to you as the body that is required to get the city's approval that the applicant has met those standards.
In previous planning commissions, we put the final plats on a consent agenda, but they never handled them as a consent agenda. They broke them out every one. So we've just continued to do that because it's really just a.
If your discretion is limited, which clearly it is, if the determination is made that it meets the requirements, your discretion is limited to basically approving it.
Right.
As a time-saving measure, if you have 4 or 5 of those on an agenda, if you could put them in a consent and then just say, these are all on consent agenda. Is there any one in particular that you would like to break out and discuss for whatever reason? And if nobody wants to break it out, then you can say, okay, well, then let's keep them on consent and let's consider them all under one motion.
Well, that seems to be more efficient if we do it that way. Can we,
Especially in situations where your discretion is limited.
yeah,
If there was a situation where somebody had submitted one and they forced it to come to this point, it would be pointed out in our information.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I don't see how it would ever get to you,
I don't
honestly.
think it would either unless somebody insisted that.
So in that vein, talking about that and our duties, when we have a preliminary, do we look at that the same way? The preliminary, as long as it is 100% in compliance, or do we weigh in with some opinions at that point?
Preliminary,
You have more discretion because preliminary, you should be looking at trees. Now, as the ordinance is written now, the sketch plan step is going to even come before all of those. It passed first reading last night, and hopefully it passes second reading in February. That's where you have a lot more discretion, because you're going to see the trees overlaid with the roads and all of those elements, and you could say, hey, there's a large stand of trees here, we'd like to see that saved, that kind of thing.
and that's at preliminary.
But no, that would be at sketch plan step,
plan, got
yeah.
I was thinking more preliminary. So like, if somebody came preliminary and they handed us this is not even anything we even look at.
No,
This
it's
is
not.
completely
Really not
irrelevant.
something you would consider, that's an elevation, and it's not something you really would consider at preliminary. Is that accurate?
Consider that in a PDD.
Yeah.
At the entitlement process, but not for a plat.
That would have to be under the DA agreement or
Not every
under,
PDD has a DA. You
Yeah,
have to have 25 acres to have a development agreement, and not every PDD has 25 acres.
But it would be part of the PDD review,
gotcha.
not necessarily the development agreement for PDD, but the PDD itself, because PDD is a zoning designation.
That has higher design standards than our straight zoning does. We don't, With-
You're almost writing the zoning ordinance for that piece of property.
And how things look and the elevations and that kind of thing.
So that's the only time that we look at elevations. And whenever we get to a final plat, everything has met city standard. And that's, I mean,
And the
you
board is.
can't ask somebody to go above and beyond at this point because they've already met city standards.
Exactly.
So that makes perfect sense.
But even in the preliminary, that's what the preliminary, we're just basically looking at
there is a little more discretion there. In terms of layout, you are looking at trees at preliminary as well. You would be confirming, once we have that sketch plan step, that it matches the master plan that you saw in the sketch plan, or the sketch plan, actually. But,
The sketch plan is going to give you a lot more discretion than you've ever had before.
when do we see the sketch plan?
That will come before the preliminary plan.
So is there a way
for the
that we,
preliminary plan.
maybe this would be helpful, and maybe it would just be for me, I don't know if anybody else. If we, assuming that the sketch plan gets approved, there's a list of things that typically that we're concerned with or like to have input on. Is there a way to have a list of those things saying, this is what you can bring up at this point and make a recommendation to the developer for the PDD? And then the next step is, this is what you could do, but on this, we can't say, you can't add elevations into that. Is there a
I
checklist?
think we could probably do that for the preliminary plat, final plat. The sketch plan, I don't know that you want to list all that out, because then you'd be artificially hamstringing yourself. I think you keep your discretion as broad as possible at the sketch plan phase.
But just to give us an idea of the things that we can
At preliminary,
make recommendations on,
at preliminary.
or whenever it's allowed.
Kind of like a tiered system of discretion. Sketch plan gives you broad powers to say, I don't like this layout. I think you need to move this street over here. This street needs to not do this funky curve. You need to save this stand of trees. All of that's going to be fair game at sketch plan.
Okay.
And then when they come to preliminary plat, then it's more of an engineering exercise, right? So you have a little discretion, not as much as in the sketch plan phase, but then you would say, okay, well, this clearly is consistent with the guidance we gave them at the sketch plan phase, so, you know, we're gonna look favorably on this. You have the least amount of discretion in a final plat. It either meets the requirements or.
Or it doesn't, yeah.
To, just as a note, many of the PDDs and like the Lorette tract, the things you've seen here, other than this last one, are governed by DAs that normally freeze the land development regulations. So anything new in these will not be subject to a sketch plan. They will still go through the preliminary plat, final plat process, because most of the time those DAs freeze their land regs.
Correct.
So it would just be, let's say Azalea Sands redeveloped, then you would see a sketch plan. Anything else in the Parkway group, you're not going to see a sketch plan. Lorette Tract, RL Bell, Sea Chase, Hope Point, none of that.
What does a sketch plan look like? It's going to look like the preliminary plat, right? It's the same
I
thing?
don't think it's going to look as formal. I think it would just be more of a conceptual drawing showing you the lots, the roads, major infrastructure corridors,
And
and all the tree, everything 8 inches caliper and above.
And so what happens there, we vote on that and that lives and dies with the commission?
Or do we make, just not vote, but recommend?
You
Is
could
that-
make recommendations. I think you would rather see recommendations come at the workshop. So by the time you get to the meeting, the applicant has a document you could vote and approve for the next step.
With the sketch, do we recommend it go, I mean, because I know at some point with the trees, it has to go to Board of Zoning Appeals. Is that where,
There are two ways that plats go to board of appeals or subdivisions. One is they get a variance to mass grade. And so that would still go to them. The other is to remove protected trees. But they would be still tied by what you had approved in that sketch plan phase.
gotcha.
And the BZA would be making decisions regarding trees on the individual parcels as opposed to the planning commission's review of trees that may interfere with or be located in the right of way.
Well, right now, planning commission can only weigh in on protected trees in infrastructure. So right-of-way, stormwater, drainage easements. The sketch plan does give them purview over all the trees.
And at what stage does the planning commission review the sketch plan?
That would come first.
At workshop?
Yeah, they would see it at workshop first, and then it would go to the meeting. But
So a lot of communities have a sketch plan phase in their land development regulations. We have never had that. A lot of communities do though, and I just think the advantages are tremendous to the planning commission and the staff, because then, you know, once somebody commits $200,000 in engineering costs,
Yeah.
and they've laid out their roads, and they've laid out their infrastructure, and then that's the first time you're seeing the plat, you don't really have a lot of, you know, power to influence the design of that subdivision. But at the sketch plan phase, you can say, no, you're not gonna put this road here, because it goes through a stand of trees. No, you're not gonna make this curve in the road here, because there's a stand of trees that could be impacted. So it gives you a lot of power on the front end to influence the design that you get before they commit to all the engineering stuff.
And
You
then,
just, oh, I'm sorry. Did you just say that we don't have a sketch plan?
no, we've never had it.
we're about to.
Oh, okay.
If I may,
That's why I was confused, because I don't remember ever having seen sketch plans.
Yeah.
So that's all coming in this new.
I think the idea of doing this whole idea is that they can do the sketch plan without as large of an investment.
As early as April, you think
And then,
we'll
of
start
course,
seeing
the
that?
idea is if we really seeing issues that don't fly with what we would typically like to see, those parties would have opportunity to say, okay, well, can we postpone like we do sometimes, and then they could go back and incorporate and maybe bring us another, an idea on the sketch plan. So it's an idea that you can have an opportunity to
And
do it, not without making a full engineering investment. I
And
believe
one
that's
other
the
thing,
idea.
you guys only see subdivisions right now, preliminary and final, so where they're creating lots for all these residential. The sketch plan step also brings to you anything that's creating 4 or more lots in common. That would normally be reviewed by staff at a site plan level. So you would see the trees on, like at the park village, right across from the entrance. Those are all multiplexes and things, but it's not a subdivision. There's no right-of-way, there's no lots. So that didn't come to you, but you would start to see that with the trees overlaid.
And are we going to have staff's eyes on it first?
Yes, it would
Because
still
y'all are
go to
the
TRC
experts.
to make sure that
Okay.
it met our,
All right,
at the conceptual level, met our standards.
okay.
And, you know, ideally, when a sketch plan comes before you, you wouldn't have a binary choice of saying we're either going to approve it or we're
Yeah.
going to deny it. If you didn't like it, you could tell them why
And give them an
table it.
opportunity.
Table it,
Yeah.
give them an opportunity to address your concerns. And then if they come back and they're just recalcitrant and they don't want to do anything you told them to do, then you can deny it.
When will we begin to see that?
I'm sorry?
When will we begin to see the set plan?
Well, it'll have to go to second reading at council in
February 3rd?
and then.
Then after that, it'll be an
law on the books
ordinance.
at that point, and new projects that,
Not under a DA.
that are not under a DA.
So should we, just thinking about all these additional things that are going to be coming up and the size of the load that you guys are going to be, well, I mean, y'all have been looking at them before, but that we're going to be looking at, and of course, more questions that we're going to have, being introduced to newer things, should we go ahead and do the consent or ask if council would let us do the consent?
I don't
on
think
the
you have to
final?
ask. I think you guys can do that. I mean, we could just set up the agenda just like councils. They have a consent agenda. We used to try to do it like that, but every time we had items in the consent, they broke them out and talked about every single one of them. So.
But if it's the final plat,
Yeah, we'll put the,
That could be on.
because there's, at that point, it's met
Yeah,
city stand.
but it
reg-
sounds like they would not want to put the sketch plan.
no, not
No,
sketch
no,
plan.
no,
Just
no.
final plat.
Just final plats, is that something that could be done to help us?
You'd still have an opportunity to discuss it at workshop.
Yeah.
It just make this part.
So, and you get in the workshop and you can say, okay, I see there's 4 final plats on it. I have some questions about one of them, I'm not comfortable.
You can
and
break it
we
out.
Break that out when we get into the meeting
Yeah.
tonight. Then you would break that one out.
And you'd still approve the other 3 by consent. It'd just be done.
Is that something that
Yeah.
you guys would be open to?
Seems like the consensus is
Much better.
to do it because it's certainly going to be more efficient.
Yeah, I can easily make that change.
You can always try it, and if you don't like it, you can go back, but
Okay,
it may prove to be more efficient.
Yeah.
just thinking if second reading is approved, then we're gonna have a little bit more on our plates.
We're going to spend a lot of time in workshop on sketch plans.
If there's a sketch plan, I
That's
foresee
where-
that
that's where-
happening.
That's where that works.
We're going to spend a lot of time in workshop.
You would have more of a relationship with the engineers designing it and talking to them about.
I think it would be good on the front end, just
Great.
a better relationship and understanding of the project.
It'll give you the opportunity to comments and time that you have not had before. We're hoping this is something that you wanted.
Yeah.
We think we heard you when you said that process, so I think this.
I think it's
Sounds like it.
yeah, a really good way for us to work well with the developers and try to get the vision that we're looking for our future.
It'll be
Northland Beach.
exciting when we get our first one. We'll see.
Yeah.
See?
So I had Suzanne bring up this graphic again on that last plat that you approved. And I heard the question, would there be a buffer requirement or some kind of screen requirement between the back of the restaurants and the house? So the answer to that is, if these houses were here first and this shopping center came in later, The shopping center would be required to put in a 6-foot masonry wall and supplementary vegetative screening. But we can't force that requirement on the shopping center just because they. That's the answer to that question.
So it's gonna look, just as an example, right behind Big Lots, Lance Restaurant Supply, it's gonna be the same thing with that
That's a
development.
pretty good example.
That is, they're gonna be able to see the back and hear when the dumpsters are emptied out.
Whoever gets there first.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Because if you think if that was trees and it was no shopping center there, we wouldn't be having an issue with that 10-foot easement.
So the text reads that when commercial goes in, next to residential existing homes, not just next to a residential
Yeah, the
zone.
residential doesn't have to put it in.
And I'm not even sure that parcel is owned residential.
No, it was highway, it was rezoned, it was highway commercial in R3, and it got rezoned all R2A to match the neighboring, I can't remember the name, Carolina
And
Keys.
Carolyn,
Carolina Keys.
this is right across from the trailer park too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Want to cloud your vote on that. I just want to point that out after the fact that that was the answer to the question.
Yeah. So if you buy that house, you know what you're getting.
You know, absolutely. And it's
You
not
know what
everyone's
you're
cup
getting.
of tea, but
No.
it's going to be an affordable option for some people.
And it's no surprise, which hey, if you want to buy there,
It might be an opportunity for someone to be able to live
yeah,
in a neighborhood where they
or close to the
want to
beach.
be, yeah.
They can get in a golf cart and get to Carrabba's and
Walk to Starbucks.
Or go to the buffet at the Chinese.
or rapidly decline into cheap rentals. Or rapidly decline into an eyesore rental neighborhood.
it's not, it is single family lots, so. Yeah.
Well, okay then. Thank you for that informative discussion.
Yeah.
Looking forward to sketch plans.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Ayes have it. We are now adjourned.
Thank you guys for the explanation.